And I am live. So, hello everyone. I'm Jen. Thanks so much for tuning in. And this live stream is about time. So, one of the most common complaints I get from students is that they simply don't have enough time for yoga, or that they're really struggling to find the time for yoga, or even struggling to make the time for yoga. And this is, I hear this all the time. So, I know that this is a real with practice. And honestly, I think one of the most beneficial things about Zoom yoga right now is that it's just removes a couple of steps that stand in the way between waking up and getting on your mat. So right now you wake up and you get on your mat and you practice at home, or at least I think that's how most people are still practicing given the pandemic. So you eliminate the stress of driving or traffic or parking or whatever other obstacles might come up in your way when you were going to a shala. So that's one of the little perks right now. But in general, you are never going to find time for yoga. You simply have to learn how to make time. And it's an important topic because I know so many people struggle with it. I've struggled with it. Everyone has struggled with it at some point. There's simply never enough time for all the important things that we want to do. But if you make your practice a priority, you can always find time for it. So let's talk about actually making time for yoga first. And I know some people, it's so ingrained after a while that you simply always have time for yoga because you factor it into your day. I know that's how it is for me, and I'm imagining if you've been practicing for a long time, that's exactly how it is for you too. You already count it into your morning, and it's kind of more like you don't have time for the other stuff because you already know that yoga is happening that morning. But when you're newer, it's just simply not that easy until the practice really becomes ingrained in you, until it becomes a part of who you are, until you can't not do it. But how do you get there? I think that one important way to start really making your practice a part of your day is to literally put it in your calendar, like block off time for it. And it doesn't have to be first thing in the morning. If that doesn't work for you, that's fine. So I know that first thing in the morning doesn't work for a lot of moms. I know that it doesn't work for a lot of people who work in different time zone than where they live. It simply doesn't work for everybody, and that's fine. Your practice does not have to happen first thing in the morning. It has to happen at a time that works for you and that supports you in your life. So my suggestion is to look at your calendar and literally put it on your calendar. Block your calendar so people can't schedule meetings with you at that time, so people can't interfere with that time, and really hold it sacred for yourself. And I've noticed now, like, that I've been doing this for so long, basically everyone knows that about me. Like, sometimes I will skip practice if I have a doctor's appointment and that the only time they can take me is first thing in the morning, or if I have a flight and it just interferes with practice time. But basically very little else interferes with that. Like, people don't call me during that time because they know that's my practice time. People don't ask me to stay out late again because I've said no, I guess, way too many times, and I no longer get those invitations. But I block it off on my calendar, and for me, my day doesn't start until 9:30, until after I'm done my practice, until after I'm done teaching in my practice if it's morning when I'm teaching. So that's when the rest of my day starts, and nothing gets on my calendar before that. Again, unless I told you, like, I will make exceptions for like important doctors meet calls, or things that are even more difficult to schedule. So that's the first thing. Put it on your calendar, block it, hold that time sacred. That is your time. Remember, you're never gonna find time to practice. You have to make it. So do it. So look at your calendar now and make time for practice, and hold yourself to it like it was a date, like it's the most important date you've been on in a long time and you don't want to miss it for the world. The next thing, that my next suggestion is to, really set your mind to it. Like, have the idea of practicing become a part of, set your mind to it. Like, have it be something that you really value, and realize the benefits of the practice that go far beyond, like breathing on your mat and exercise, like the quality of your mind, the calmness of your mind, the quality of your interactions that you have with other people throughout the day. Like, look at the bigger picture of your practice, these bigger benefits of practice, and use that as kind of a reward for yourself. And I think it makes it a little bit easier to prioritize practice when we look at it as something that's not self-indulgent, but something that actually benefits not only yourself, but the other people you interact with throughout the day. Because there is that ripple effect with practice. And, it really does benefit more people than just yourself. And then finally, I think it's really important to reconsider what you call your practice. I know that it's really easy to get attached to the idea of your practice. I hear it all the time, my practice. Oh, I haven't even done my practice because I've been injured. Yes, you have. Who else's practice are you doing? Or I haven't done my full practice because I haven't had enough time. Again, it's your practice. It's still your practice. It might not be your full practice, but it is your practice. And I think that as Ashtangis, we really get in the mindset that practice should be 90 minutes or longer. It doesn't have to be. Sure, on a weekend, that's nice, right? If you're taking a workshop, like, yeah, sure. Like, let's be honest. I love a 90-minute practice too. That's kind of my sweet spot. But in all reality, it does not always happen. And that's okay. If you get attached to the idea that you have to do that entire 90-minute practice or 2-hour practice or whatever it is for it to count as your Ashtanga practice, it's a huge mistake in the way you're thinking. Instead, think of all the different ways that you can practice. Like, there's so many different practices that you can have in your toolbox to fit different parts of your life, to fit different schedules that you have, to fit your day, and to support you in having enough energy to do your job, to be with your family, to be with friends, to do yard work, to do whatever else you have to do. Your practice is supporting you in that. So if, rushing to get on the mat and doing 90 minutes just isn't happening, or if you feel like if you can't do that full 90 minutes, you're better off just skipping, I'm here to tell you that that is just not true. So have a toolbox of practices that are shorter. And it's still up for sale on my website, that Recharge Your Practice. It's 7 practices. It's only $7. Go download it right now. Like, I'm not going to leave it up there forever. And it's only $7. And in there is 7 different short practices to fit your life, to fit your body and to fit your life. And that's really what we're trying to do with practice. So, a practice could be just the Surya Namaskaras. A practice could be just the standing. I have this great practice that I love. It's actually in the Facebook group. If you scroll back a ways, that's a shortened standing sequence and just a couple of postures from seated. It takes 25 minutes. It's one of my favorite short practices. Or a practice could be skipping vinyasas. It could be skipping all the way ahead and just working on back bends and stuff that counter all that forward sitting that we do all day long. It could be a half primary. I mean, there's so many different options, but you have to know what's available to you, right? And that takes some experimenting, and it takes some playing around with series that work for you, that take up about a certain amount of time, so that you have this arsenal of practices that you can pull from anytime you need to. So you're always getting on your mat. Because if you win in your routine, you're going to win in your day. And let yoga become a part of this. Like, let it become a part of your routine. For me, my morning just doesn't feel right if I don't practice yoga. Like, I love a moon day. But aside from that, if I feel like I've kind of like lost my morning, and I've lost that, my day unfolds usually a little bit differently when I skip practice. And normally it feels a lot better when I practice first. For all those reasons I stated before as well. But it also, like, I feel like I made my practice a priority then, and that feels rewarding. It means I'm really locking in on my routine, which also feels like I have some control over my life, which, especially at a time right now when we just don't have that much control, it's nice to focus on the things that you can control, like practice. It just, for me, I just start my day off happier. And usually if I start my day off happier, everything else that happens later in the day is also happier. So the main takeaways I want you to take from here are, you have to make time for practice. And my suggestion is to literally pull out your calendar and schedule it right now. and don't let anything else interfere with that. You know, really, really hold that for yourself, and find out other things that you need to make it work for you. Like I actually finally got a haircut recently, and the hair stylist told me she loves yoga, and she said that her kids were always climbing on her yoga mat when she was trying to practice yoga. So she bought 2 kids yoga mats for them, and now they all have their own yoga mat. And for her, that was like a little something that helped her be better off with her practice. I mean, I think take advantage of the fact that you can practice at home right now. It saves all those steps between waking up and going to the shala. You know, like I used to have to deal with parking and traffic and all these things, and it would be sometimes really stressful getting to the shala. So you can eliminate that right now. There's a lot of Zoom offerings, or, you know, go to the shala if you need that. Like find what works for you is my point. So maybe it's going to shala, maybe it's practicing at home. For me, it's definitely holding that time sacred and not letting anything interfere with it unless it's just an absolute necessity. Be as consistent as possible, because you know, you'll actually kind of train the people around you not to interfere with you during that time. So if it's every night at 5, or if it's every night at 7, or if it's every morning at 5, or if it's every morning at 7, or if it's lunchtime or whatever, try to be consistent, because you are going to kind of train the people around you that that's what you're doing during that time. You know, it's just like how people don't really call after 9 p.m. It's like people don't really call when you're doing yoga either, once they know that that's what you're doing and you're not going to pick up during that time. And then find a variety of practices that work for you, whatever it might be. If it's skipping vinyasas, if it's doing standing and stopping after that, if it's a short primary, if it's skipping the postures that you know, feel bad on your cranky knee, whatever it is, have this arsenal of practices that you can choose from. And it doesn't have to be primary series or second series or third series. I'm talking get a little creative with the sequences. Find something that supports your body and your life, because that is really ultimately what we're going for. And then commit to yourself. Do it. Download the calendar that's in this link. You get like your little dopamine hit every time you cross off a box. And also remember that your yoga practice takes many different forms. So, you know, think bigger than asana. Again, because if you get hung up to that 90-minute asana practice, like that can be a big commitment and it can be hard to do. And I know personally I've gotten really resentful over the years of how much time that takes up. But if I think of like, okay, but you know, maybe I can do a 10-minute meditation today and that's just what it is. Or maybe I'm going to do a 10-minute meditation and 10-minute asana practice and that's just what it is today. You know, have an arsenal of practices that work for you beyond the set sequences that really support you. And I think that that is about all I have to say in regards to making time for yoga. But download the little calendar. If you haven't done the Retry Yoga Practice Challenge yet, you can find that on my website, and I would, you know, go for it. Like that's going to make things a little bit easier for you, a little bit more supportive in finding a practice that fits your life. So I hope that helped you, that it gave you some things to think about and some things to work on in your own practice. And I will be back soon with another live stream for you next week. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Have a great day.